All right, so today we're diving deep into the world of offset printing. And it's more than just hitting print on your computer. You've sent in some really interesting sources that really get into how this whole industry works.
Yeah, it seems like you want to understand not just the how-to of offset printing, but also where it fits in today's world, with digital printing and all that. You're even curious about what a career in this field would look like.
Absolutely. We're going all in. We'll unpack it all, from those massive printing presses to the real-world skills you'd need to make it in this industry. So let's imagine you've got this amazing photo and you want to make it into a really high-quality art print.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Now, with offset printing, you're not just sending it to a regular old printer. We're talking about taking that image and putting it onto a metal plate.
It's kind of like making a giant, super detailed stamp. That plate is specially treated, so some areas hold ink. Those are the parts that'll make your image, while other areas, they don't. So those become the blank spaces.
So there's a lot more to it than just slap it on some ink.
Oh, absolutely. There's a real science to it. This plate then gets wrapped around a cylinder, a big roller basically, and that cylinder spins, coming into contact with other rollers that are coated with ink. Now here's the interesting part, the offset part. That inked plate, it doesn't actually touch the paper directly.
Yeah.
Instead, the image first goes onto a rubber blanket.
Like a temporary tattoo for the final print.
Exactly. And from that rubber blanket, which, by the way, makes sure the pressure is perfect across the entire image, the ink then finally goes onto the paper, or whatever material you're using. It could be cardboard or something else. And it's this indirect method that makes the detail in offset printing so incredible, even for huge print runs.
So it makes sense. The quality would be amazing. But, and maybe this is a big question, what about digital printing? It seems like everyone's talking about how it's taking over. Is there even still a place for offset printing?
That's the big question, isn't it? But actually, the stuff you sent me, it really seems like offset printing is far from dead.
Yeah, digital printing definitely has its perks, especially for smaller projects or when you need something personalized, like those ads you get in the mail with your name all over them.
Mhm.
But when you need a lot of copies, I'm talking hundreds, thousands even, that's when offset printing really shines.
So it's all about using the right tool for the job.
Exactly. Think of it like this. If you're whipping up a batch of cookies, your regular mixer is perfect. But if you're supplying a whole bakery, you need the industrial strength stuff. Offset printing, it's like that heavy-duty mixer. Bigger investment to get set up, but incredibly efficient when you need huge quantities.
Plus, you can't beat that offset quality. You said it. The way the process works, how precise it is, plus the special inks you can use, it all comes together to give you this depth of color, this richness that many digital printers just can't match. That's why things like art prints still rely so heavily on offset. These subtle color variations really matter.
It's like comparing a regular poster to a museum-quality print. They might show the same image, but the depth, the textures you get from the different printing methods are completely different.
Totally. And here's another thing. Those sources you sent, they mentioned that the offset industry has been getting more sustainable. Soy-based inks, recycled papers, that kind of thing.
That's great. So it's not just about the end product, but being mindful of the environmental impact too. But how does that actually affect someone like me, just a regular consumer?
Well, it's like this. More and more people, they care about the environment, right? So they're looking for products that reflect that. Now, imagine you get a brochure and it's printed with those soy-based inks on recycled paper. That sends a message.
It tells you the company cares.
Exactly. They care about what they're selling, but they also care about the planet.
So it's more than just a visual thing. It's connecting with a whole set of values.
Exactly. And companies are picking up on that.
Okay, so we've established that offset printing is here to stay. It seems like it's finding its own special place in a world that's constantly changing. But what does that mean for the offset printing industry as a whole? I mean, what does the future hold?
Well, it really is interesting. Offset printing, it's not trying to be everything for everyone anymore. Instead, it's getting more specialized, Like we're seeing it make a comeback with things like those really fancy art books, limited edition prints, and luxury packaging things where that incredible quality, that feel really matters.
It's like it's going back to its roots, focusing on the artistry, the craft, but thinking practically, what does it actually take to succeed as an offset printer now? With all these changes happening, what skills do you really need?
Those sources you sent, they actually paint a pretty cool picture of what a modern offset printer is like. It's this unique mix of technical skills, an eye for art, and a whole lot of problem solving.
So more than just knowing how to work a massive machine.
Way more. Of course you need those technical chops, no doubt. But the sources really emphasize that's just the starting point. Understanding color management, that's huge.
I get that color is important, but can you break that down a bit more? Why is color management so crucial for offset printers in particular?
Remember how we were talking about the image being separated on that metal plate? Each of those separations, it stands for a different ink color. A really good offset printer, they don't just see the picture on the screen, they see how all those separate colors will work together when they're actually printed.
Wow, that's thinking several steps ahead, like a color chess game or something.
That's a great analogy. They've got to be thinking about how the paper is going to absorb that ink, how to tweak the ink itself to get the exact shades they need, and then if the color's not quite right during printing, how to fix it on the fly. That's a skill.
It sounds like it. And I noticed those sources also mention troubleshooting as a big part of the job in general.
Big time. Offset printing has so many moving parts, and I mean that literally and figuratively. The machines themselves can be temperamental. The materials can be affected by things like temperature and humidity. And then you've got those deadlines looming.
Pressure.
You said it. So being able to think on your feet, stay calm when things get crazy, and find solutions to problems you didn't even see coming, that's crucial. It's like being a detective trying to figure out why a color's off or an image is blurry.
I bet those communication skills, being a good team player, those come in handy too.
Oh, for sure. Offset printers, they're usually part of a whole team working alongside graphic designers, the tech guys who prep the files for printing, and other printing pros. If you can't clearly explain your ideas, understand what others need from you, and just work well with everyone, that whole printing process can get messy fast.
It takes a village to make a beautiful print, or something like that.
Something like that. And, while we're talking about the process, might be a good time to touch on the career path itself. A lot of those sources mention the apprenticeship route, pretty traditional.
So, starting at the bottom, learning the ropes hands-on from the pros.
That's it. You're getting real-world experience, working right next to people who've been doing it for years, soaking up all that knowledge. It's like those old-school workshops, learning a craft from a master. You start by watching, then you're helping out with the basic stuff, and little by little, you take on more responsibility as you get better.
Earning your stripes.
Exactly. And you can see that in how the career progresses. You might start as an apprentice, then you're a junior offset printer, and eventually a senior offset printer. Each step up, you're handling more, tackling tougher projects, and obviously, your knowledge and experience grow with it.
And at the top of the mountain, the master offset printer. The true printing gurus.
Love that. The gurus. And they might even specialize, some focus on really secure printing, like for passports or money. Others, they're all about those perfect art reproductions, the kind you see in museums, working with galleries. Years of experience, they're at the top of their game.
It's pretty inspiring the level of skill you can reach in this field.
Yeah.
But gotta be realistic, right? It can't all be glamorous.
Yeah.
There are definitely challenges that come with the job, I'd imagine.
Oh, absolutely. Just like anything else, it has its demands. Physically, it can be tough. You're on your feet a lot, sometimes dealing with heavy stuff, and it can be noisy. And then there's that pressure of deadlines having to be so incredibly precise. One tiny slip up and you might have to reprint a whole batch. That's time and money. Nobody wants that.
Sounds like you need to be able to handle the heat if you're going to make it as an offset printer.
Definitely. But those challenges, they can also be what makes it so rewarding. When you figure out a really tough problem or you see a super high quality print job finished, there's this real sense of accomplishment.
It's about taking pride in what you do. Speaking of landing that offset printing job, one of the things you sent over was really interesting. It's from this platform, RoleCatcher, and they're all about helping people with their careers. Seems like it'd be really useful for someone thinking about offset printing as a job.
Yeah, RoleCatcher, what's cool about them is they don't just give you general career advice. They get really specific, especially about what hiring managers are looking for in an offset printer.
Like having a secret weapon for your job hunt.
Right. For example, they have this whole list of common interview questions for offset printers, 10 of them actually, and they give you tips on how to answer them in a way that makes you stand out.
Okay, let's pretend we're in the hot seat. What kind of questions are we talking about?
Well, some are pretty basic, like, what's your experience with offset printing? Sounds obvious, but they're not just looking for a list of places you've worked or machines you've touched.
Don't just read off your resume, right?
Exactly. You want to show them you're passionate. So instead of saying, I've worked on a Heidelberg press, you could be like, I had the opportunity to train on a Heidelberg press, and I was blown away by the precision, how efficient it was. I'm really interested in. And then you mention a specific part of offset printing that gets you excited, shows them you're not just going through the motions, you've actually done your homework.
Show them that spark. What other questions should someone be ready for?
Another common one is, how do you make sure the printed stuff is top quality? That's where that attention to detail comes in.
Because one tiny mistake could mean redoing a whole bunch.
Exactly. Here, you can talk about the specific ways you check the quality throughout the process. Like, you could mention things like doing regular press checks, using a densitometer, that's a tool to make sure the ink is consistent, or even how you work with the pre-press team from the get-go to make sure the colors are going to be spot on.
Showing them you're proactive, you care about getting it right.
Exactly. Now, here's one that throws people off sometimes. Tell me about why color management is important in offset printing.
Yes, color management, we talked about how important it was. But it makes sense they'd ask about it in an interview.
Oh yeah, they want to see if you really get it. It's not enough to know how to mix colors. You have to know how those colors will look when they go from the computer screen to the actual paper.
So you could talk about things like calibrating the printing press, right? Making sure those colors are accurate, and how you use different color settings depending on the paper, the ink. You could even mention those standard color systems, like Pantone.
Totally. The more details you can give them, the better. It shows them you understand how complex color management is in this world.
Walking the walk and talking the talk.
Nailed it. And then get ready for the problem-solving question. Something along the lines of, what happens when a print job goes wrong? What do you do?
Because let's be real, everyone has those moments, even the pros.
Exactly. It's not about saying you're perfect. It's about what you do when things inevitably go sideways.
So that's never happened to me.
Definitely not. Instead, you could say, I get it. Unexpected stuff happens. If a print job wasn't going to plan, the first thing I'd do is, and then you walk them through how you'd figure out what went wrong, how you'd troubleshoot, and the steps you'd take to fix it.
Showing them you can handle the pressure, think on your feet, and find those solutions.
Exactly. And if you've got a good real-life example of a time you saved the day, share it. It makes you more relatable and shows them you can handle the heat.
This has been fantastic. It seems like to really nail that offset printing interview, you need the skills, but you also have to be able to communicate them clearly and with confidence and with passion.
Totally. Show them you're not just pushing buttons, you're a craftsperson who gets the artistry, the science, all of it.
Well, we've gone deep on offset printing today. We talked about how it works, the skills you need to succeed, even how to rock that interview. But before we wrap up, you mentioned earlier how the offset printing industry is changing. What do you think? What innovations are going to be big in the future of offset printing?
The million-dollar question. It really is exciting to think about what's next, especially with technology changing so fast. Maybe we'll see these super advanced printing presses, ones that can do digital stuff too, even more precise, even more creative. Or maybe we'll see these brand new inks, new materials that are even better for the environment. One thing's for sure, in the printing world, there's always something new around the corner.
And on that note, we'll leave our listeners to ponder all those possibilities. Thanks for taking this deep dive into the world of offset printing with us.